Do you have extra paper if I need? I think I should be
Sure.
okay
You
with
can use
this.
that, too, the back of that.
Okay, I'll use this first and then.
All right.
back
Good
of it.
morning, good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, April 20th, and I'm calling the Environment Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach to order at 1:01 p.m. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Carolyn Diefendorfer,
Present.
Ms. Nettie Green,
Present.
Sir Eric Seward,
Present?
Ms. Mary Peck,
Present.
Ms. Heather Metz,
Here.
Mr. Charlie Garlow,
Present.
and the chair is present.
Catherine Burgwin is present.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's
Catherine.
okay.
And Catherine Bergwin is present, and let the record reflect that we are, Joseph Vesio is absent. And Catherine has kindly volunteered to take minutes on Joe's behalf, so thank you, Catherine. We have a quorum and can conduct business today. Sent out via email was a draft of the meeting minutes held on March 17th, 2023. Is there any revisions, comments that anyone has to those minutes?
No.
I have a comment, Catherine Burgwin. I can't print them in the format that he sends them out in. I don't have Windows 365. Am I just being stupid?
No.
No, okay. Is there another way I can get them?
Uh,
I couldn't even download them.
We'll find a way for that to, work. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I'm sure it could be PDF'd and sent out.
If he saves them as a PDF, I would think she'd be able to get to them.
Yeah, I couldn't even download it. Yeah, I was able to see them the first time he sent them out, but this last time, I'll talk to him.
Okay, we will work on that, so it's better going forward. If there's no other comments, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I so move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of March 17th, 2023. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? And it passes. We don't have any correspondence identified for the meeting in general. So we'll kick it right off to old business, A, which is a discussion about potential vote regarding straw-free initiatives and other related items, prohibiting single-use plastics and plastic styrofoam. And this was previously, was a House or a Senate bill, was it House bill or one Senate bill?
Senate Bill 51 is what has been passed.
It's been passed, okay.
It's just been passed?
It was passed in the, I wrote down dates, in the Senate, and it's awaiting presentation in the House.
Last year, it was known as HB 134, but
Yeah.
that doesn't count anymore.
It's, right, it's Senate Bill 51, and the Senate has passed it, and it's awaiting consideration in the House. They don't have their agenda out for next week yet, so I don't know if it'll be on there.
Well, thank you for that update. Nettie, do you just want to give a brief overview why I pulled the document up here?
Okay, I just wanted to make a proposal. We have discussed this at great length, so.
Need everybody to sit closer to the mic.
We've discussed this at great length, so I just made out a proposal. Could I just make the proposal?
Well, at the last meeting, we did ask to get some feedback from past surveys and as well as trying to engage some feedback from businesses. So do we have any update on that front?
Right. So I reached out to the president of Main Street, and he hesitated to combine Main Street business, because we were doing our first survey in a long time, and he hesitated to commingle city business with Main Street business. So I was not given the okay to include it there. I was able to get the survey that was done in January 2021, though. That survey seemed to focus mostly on the straw piece. So, you know, if we want to do a survey, probably, and that survey was done in conjunction with the chamber, which I think is a good thing, because the chamber would get a lot more businesses. Not all restaurants in Rehoboth are members of Main Street. So that would get a lot more. If we recall, Mike from Above the Dunes was here, and it was his opinion that going to straws by request only would not be a big deal, but that going to banning things, especially if we were going to try to do it for this season, would not be fair, because a lot of the businesses already had their supplies ordered for this year. So,
Yeah, my proposal is that we would do this effective January 1st of next year.
okay.
And that's, hi, Catherine Burgwin, and that's banning just the straws, or that's also clamshells, et cetera, et cetera?
Okay, HB 134 was straws upon request, plastic stirs, plastic little things that you stick through the hamburger. What do you
Sandwiches,
call
yeah,
that?
those picks.
Picks,
those
okay,
picks.
excuse me, thank you. Picks, and disposable or single use, however you want to put it, styrofoam, which would include clamshells and little dishes that you would, you know, dispose of, not freezers, not that type of thing.
Cups?
Yeah, cups, yeah, disposable styrofoam. Styrofoam goes into your skin, into your bloodstream. It is a carcinogenic when it is heated up. It actually dissolves into living beings.
So I've got the 4 restrictions that was proposed in that that House Bill 134, A, B, C, and D is listed here. So if you look at the recommendations, here, it would be taking those restrictions and adopting them as a city ordinance. The city ordinance would become effective, it says here, May 29, 2023, but we agreed it would be January 1st, 2024, and that we would partner with other organizations to get the information out, and that we would rely upon Rehoboth Beach commissioners to decide and institute in enforcement and penalties.
Correct.
So I don't know if it makes a difference, but do we want to look at the current bill? I think there were some changes. I don't know if you have any interest in looking at what's in Senate Bill 51.
What are the,
you know
what are
what
the
the changes
changes,
Well,
Carolyn?
for example, okay, so they are restricting straws. It says a food establishment may not provide a single-service plastic straw unless any of the following apply. Plastic straws requested by the consumer, plastic straws for a patient or resident if the food establishment is located in a hospital. We don't need to worry about that. Plastic straw is attached to prepackaged foods like juice boxes. They are allowed to continue. And it says a food establishment that provides straws must strive to ensure that single-service plastic straws always remain available upon request. The next restriction was on plastic single-service articles. Food establishment may not provide a consumer with any of the following single-service articles if the article is made from plastic: beverage stir, cocktail pick, sandwich pick. This section does not restrict a food establishment from providing compostable single-service articles such as those made from paper, pasta, sugarcane wood, or bamboo. The next restriction was on the polystyrene foam food service packaging. Food establishments may not provide ready-to-eat food to a consumer in polystyrene foam food service packaging. This section does not apply to prepackaged foods, healthcare provider, fire company, a nonprofit organization. Food establishments are encouraged not to use or sell this prepackaged in polystyrene foam food servicing packaging. And then it goes into penalties. So that's the extent of SB 51.
Seems pretty similar to 134.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find that it has things that you're in your analysis that makes it better than HB 134, or is it pretty much the same?
I didn't compare line by line, but I don't believe it is 100% identical. I'd have to look here.
It seems that this new Senate Bill 51 is just, it provides a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
I'm wondering,
Great.
do we have a good, still have a shot of getting the straws upon request by Memorial Day here in Rehoboth?
Well, I think what is being offered as a proposal is using a January 1st.
Oh, for the straws
2024.
too?
Yeah. Is that correct?
Yes, I was asked to write up this proposal, which we've talked about in depth before and after COVID, but we didn't meet in January. That's why we've set the later date, because I think it would be very hard to ask people for this summer.
It would not
Yeah,
be
it
fair
just
to the
wouldn't- it wouldn't be
restaurants. It would
fair.
not be fair. They
wouldn't
would
be
still
fair.
have to dispose of all of their inventory.
Yeah.
So it might as well get used as opposed to just thrown out.
Right, but we could have two separate suggestions for the commissioners. My feeling is both plastic and paper offered only on request, because paper straws sometimes have plastic lining in them. I mean, why are we quibbling about just plastic straws? Just get used to drinking out of clean glasses and have no straws offered except on request. Now, we could get technical about it too, about milkshakes, and I mean, of course, you have to have a really big straw to get a milkshake. Maybe we should put a specific thing. But I mean, I think people get, I mean, we can be specific. My feeling is that we have talked about this. The commissioners seem to be open. I don't know, Edward, you could say, but my feeling is, why don't we take the grand leap and be the leader in the state? We're the entertainment capital of the state of Delaware. And why don't we be the leaders rather than the followers of what the state is doing? And hopefully the state passes it. But that's my feeling.
Not knowing when, if you were to present, I guess my question, when would be the earliest, if we went forward with this today, when would be the earliest it would get on an agenda? And I guess I asked that knowing how many things are on the agenda already.
Sure, the mayor actually addressed this at the last meeting, and he is well aware that there is a few recommendations that are pending that we've not yet scheduled on an agenda. And he apologized for that and recognizes that it exists, but we've just,
Right.
I mean, we've been having very long meetings and having extra meetings, and so I believe that at least a few things that are currently pending in the queue would probably be in June.
Because my thought would be, do we put something in, some kind of language that it's the I don't know, the earlier, the later of 6 months from the time that the commissioners bless it, or January 1st, that kind of thing. Because if, let's say it doesn't get on an agenda until August, to then say to them, January is, it may not be fair to them. I don't know. But my concern is just, we don't have control over it when it gets on the agenda for the commissioners.
As
Only
far-
that we
yeah,
can recommend it.
Yeah. As far as fairness, we, particularly with the straws, we have been door to door with businesses. They are very, for the most part, very supportive. It's just-
Straws, I
yeah.
have no, straws, I think, can be done very quickly.
Yeah.
The other items, I think it's harder because Mike acknowledged at the last meeting that they may have to find a supplier for the non-polystyrene. Their current supplier may not supply that. And so it may not be as simple as saying just switch, because they may have to go find another supplier.
Yeah.
That's my only concern. And we have new restaurants in town that may not have been made aware before,
True.
okay? And the state's bill, assuming it passes, has a 2025 date, a July 1, 2025 date in it. And I'm not saying that we need to wait for that, but I do think we have to give the businesses time to make sure they can get the supplies they need.
I think 2024 is time.
Well,
Yeah.
not if it doesn't pass until, let's say the commissioners don't pass it until July or August. It may or may not be quick enough time for them to finish getting through the season and then finding a supplier. I don't know. I've never run a restaurant.
Well, I think the commissioners are certainly free to put whatever date they think works when they get it. Like, even if we recommended January 1st, there's not to stop the commissioner saying that's too soon.
True.
I can assure you that once this rises to the level of being discussed with the mayor and commissioners, if business owners do have a concern about that, it will start being expressed.
Yes. Agreed.
Yeah.
So can we consider Nettie's motion? I'd be willing to second it as it
Well,
is, and then it would get further along on the agenda for the commissioners.
Well, I think what needs to be specified here is a date that we're recommending. So whether that's still going to be January 1, 2024 or not, and which restrictions we're folding up into this, if it's House Bill 134 or Senate Bill 51. So those two things need to be articulated in
Can
the
I just
motion.
ask a question for you guys that have been working on this for a really long time? I know. Is your goal to have the Rehoboth Beach match the state exactly? Is that what you think? I mean, in my mind, that would be the most effective. So there's no discrepancy and you're enforcing one thing broadly. But I'm not sure we're there because it sounds like 150, or it sounds like 51 we didn't match them up exactly yet. But is that your goal, to have it match the states?
I mean, I think that makes the most sense, because then there's no question. If you have, some of these restaurateurs have businesses downtown and businesses outside of town, and I think it would be easier for them to know what rules apply everywhere. And if we match, they can also get their ducks in a row for the rest of their restaurants.
But the state bill may not pass, in which case we'd like to get something in place for Rehoboth
Well, no,
Beach
but we.
sooner rather than later.
But I don't disagree with that. I'm not saying wait for the date. But the
bill should match.
the particular items within the bill.
I think when we first started down this path, I mean, we wouldn't be here if the state had a law. We were doing it because the state didn't have a law.
Right.
So, they may have a law, but I think I hope that we could have something on the books in this interim period before the state
Yeah.
Especially with the straws, I think the business, we have all pretty much said that they can deal with it.
Yeah.
And
And
it is
straws upon
just straws on request. We're
Yeah.
not banning straws yet.
Yeah, straws upon request would be, because even though we have this voluntary campaign, it's just such an ingrained habit and everybody forgets and so we didn't really, it didn't work. So I was hoping we could at least have straws upon request ordinance for now, and then maybe we can let the state legislate the rest, since they've been through a lot more. I presumably the state's going through a lot more information than we are about all these packaging materials, and they have figured it out, hopefully.
So,
and
Mary,
I feel that if we do this within the city of Rehoboth, yes, there are people that own restaurants in both places. But again, we would be taking the leadership if we did this 2024. We'd be taking the leadership that would help the entire state and people out on the highway too. I mean, it would, so why not be the leaders rather than the followers?
Well, by implementing early, won't we? I mean, we're not
that's what
suggesting
I'm
waiting until
saying.
July
Yeah.
2025.
Yeah, I'm just saying, why don't we go on and do it for 2024?
Sounds like we're in agreement that we ought to do this on January 1st, 2024, unless, of course, you're open to a friendly amendment of Mary's. But that would get the ball rolling, get to the mayor and commissioners, and hopefully beat the state to the future.
Yeah.
I mean, while, if we set a date for January 1, I mean, we can still concurrently still use Main Street and the chamber to push the initial straw-free initiative. I mean, we can still push that project concurrently while this is being implemented.
I would hope that if it does get to the mayor and commissioners, that I would get some press and it will get out there and everybody will hear about it, and that would be really
Yeah.
a good step
So-
I mean,
forward.
it is, after our last meeting, they did interview some restaurants. RDE did.
SOLA also is very, very supportive. This has been really
I
number
think the
number
homeowners
one
association
with them.
is
Yeah.
as well.
okay, so what's the plan for the note taker, please?
I'm seconding the motion of
But,
Nettie.
Okay, shall I make the motion?
You want to
can we see
restate it
what
before I
it
second
says?
it? Go ahead.
Before you second
I forgot what it's.
Read it again, Ned.
Okay, this is just what I wrote up because it seemed like the other was so wordy and so, the Rehoboth Environment Committee proposes that by January the 1st, 2024, both plastic and paper straws, and we may want to change that, will be offered in Rehoboth Beach only upon request. We also propose that all plastic picks and stirs be banned, as well as disposable, or we could say single-use polystyrene, styrofoam products by January 1st, 2024. Rationale for this proposal, history of the Environment Committee's activities, details about these plastics as well as styrofoam products are in the proposal presented at the committee's March 17th, 2023 meeting.
Can
Respect,
you
please.
email that to me?
Pardon? I will.
I would like for there, if we want to use the language that is in Senate Bill 51, can that be incorporated? We want the exact language of the restrictions to be exactly what's in Senate Bill 51, correct?
Okay.
Yes.
So,
Want to add that to your motion, Nettie? That
Okay.
we include the particulars from SB 51?
okay. Let's see. Okay, maybe rationale for the end of it, the rationale for this proposal, history of the Environment Committee's activities, details from State Senate Bill 51, and the details about, let's see, rationale for this proposal. Okay, for this committee's activities, details about what we're proposing are in Senate Bill 51.
Can I ask that, to just be clear and clean, that what you are, and I actually, I would ask that whatever motion is being made is that we adopt the analysis report as presented with the following changes. The effective date be January 1, 2024, and references to SB 134 be SB 51. I think that's clean. You've already have some of the rationale in here, so that would just be a cleaner way to do it.
Okay, just put at the bottom of the motion, references, I didn't quite get that, references,
Update the reference from Senate Bill 134 to Senate Bill 51.
Okay.
The current number.
So,
update.
and Nettie,
yes.
I'm going to ask that, just so it's a voting member, can I ask Carolyn to make the motion? If
Sure.
you're willing to do that, Carolyn?
Sure, yeah.
Sure, so I move that we adopt the analysis report as stated with, once amendments are made to the date, the effective date being January 1, 2024, and that references to Senate Bill 134 be updated to Senate Bill 51, which is the current number under the current session of the legislature.
Excellent. We've got a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
Got a motion by Carolyn Diefendorfer and a second by Mr. Charlie Garlow. And it is to adopt an analysis and recommendations to the mayor and commissioners. That would be that Rehoboth Beach commissioners take a bold step of accepting the wisdom and the research done by Delaware Senate in making SB 51 an ordinance effective for the city of Rehoboth Beach. This ordinance will become effective January 1, 2024. The Rehoboth Beach commissioners shall contact Rehoboth Beach Chamber of Commerce, Rehoboth Beach Main Street, SOLA, and ask them to inform food service businesses to this effect. Rehoboth Beach commissioners will decide and institute enforcement of this ordinance. So that is the motion before us. I'm going to do an individual vote on this. Carolyn Diefendorfer,
Aye.
Mr. Charlie Garlow,
Aye.
Ms. Nettie Green,
Aye.
Mr. Eric Seward,
Aye.
Ms. Catherine Bergren, Ms. Heather Metz,
Aye.
Ms. Mary Peck,
Aye.
and the chair will abstain. The motion carries, and it'll go before the mayor and commissioners.
Right before, just to give you guys an update, the bill is with the House Health and Human Development Committee, and it's supposed to be taken up within the next 12 legislative days. So hopefully, they will pass it on to the full House and get it in before they go out of session this year.
And I appreciate the word bold.
Question for you, Ed, where are these two documents that you keep referring to? That's the House bill, is that the House Bill 134 that's up there now, or the Senate bill?
This is 134. This is Senate Bill 51. This is the more recent one. We can email. We'll revise the analysis recommendation with the new language,
Okay.
and we'll attach this Senate bill to it and send it out.
And what the new language in our motion will be exactly the same as the language in the SB 51.
Correct.
Okay,
We
and then my
will
last-
highlight all of the restrictions here from line 84 here, 84, which is 3002Q, which is the restrictions, and it goes down to line 113.
Okay. And then, I ask a lot of questions. And then, who's going to do that? who's going to revise our proposal.
I will do that, and then mail it out to,
Great.
email it out.
You also can get this from the state. I mean, you can get those two different bills from just going online.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, no, I know that, but he had them so quickly, I thought,
Right.
I just wanted to know. And my final question, I lost it. You're going to revise, and, you had a document before that you were highlighting? Was that from Nettie?
I believe
Yeah,
that
okay,
was,
that I could find in our
That's what,
Environment Committee.
That's what I presented on March 17th.
Okay,
correct, yeah, and that's, I'm going to revise that document
Okay.
and send it back out.
perfect. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
All right, anything else?
I'd like to make a suggestion that anytime that you have documents that you're reviewing, I need to have a copy of them so they can be embedded
Into the agenda.
for the public.
Correct.
Because I have had recently phone calls from the public on different agendas where they know that documents are being reviewed, but they're not able to see them.
Correct. Just a reminder, so any time that we're sending something out for us to view ahead of time, always copy Ann on that.
Okay.
All right, next on the agenda is just any updates and discussion related to offshore wind. I put this on the agenda because I know about a week or a week and a half ago, there was a presentation and discussion that happened at the library. Was anyone there and would like to give just a little bit of an update on that?
Okay, so it was a symposium that was put on by a group. They have an acronym POWER, and they're basically trying to get the state to put offshore wind into its energy portfolio and have an offshore wind project for Delaware. But the purpose of the symposium was just informational for the public, another public information session. So they had somebody from U.S. Wind, Mike Dunmeyer, probably a lot of you know who he is. And they also had a woman from the National Wildlife Federation to talk about any questions people had about impact on marine life and how the NWF sees it. And then they had, Charlie, who else was there? They had,
And we can.
Chris Oleth from the Special Initiative on Offshore Wind was the third presenter.
okay, yeah. And so it was just sort of an informational thing, but there was a lot of turnout, and they tried to keep it civilized by making people write their questions on index cards, and so that you weren't to sort of argue with the presenters, So then it's sort of like the way the Rehoboth one was done, and so they tried to answer the questions, and I think it was a good event that people had another chance to ask, and I guess a lot of people were, whales was, because of the recent whale deaths. So it was good to have a couple people sort of, explain what caused, that they had actually done autopsies on the whales, and they were killed by vessel strikes, and it had nothing to do with offshore wind exploration. So to the extent that there are some people that are kind of spreading misinformation that the whales are being killed by offshore wind efforts, they were trying to debunk that, and some people were still skeptical. And also, I guess the NWF, they feel that there may be impacts on wildlife, but they feel that it's going to be mitigated way more than a lot of other industries in the waters, and that the really, in terms of whales and birds, the NWF feels good about the situation. So it's interesting to hear them say that.
I think, just an extra comment, I think they feel good enough now, but they will continue to monitor very closely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and continue to support as indicated. If things go south,
yes, they did say that there have been cases where they've had to challenge some wind projects
Right.
due to impact, and they are going to keep their eye on it. Yeah.
Note that there was a Cape Gazette front page article describing a lot of the things that Mary was discussing. If you get a chance to look at that, capegazette.com, you know, a lot of good stuff you can find there. I thought that was useful information.
one last question. Who was the third person?
Chris with a K, Oleth, Oleth from the SIOW, an acronym which is difficult to pronounce. Unlike POWER, the People for Offshore Wind Energy Resources, much easier to remember. Special Initiative on Offshore Wind.
SIOW. Got it. Thank you.
Anything else? Was there any new information that came out of that, of timing and updates about the COP plans being reviewed again, or any public hearings or public comment period?
Anything new about timing? I didn't hear anything.
Anything? Yeah. I did ask Chris about where they were planning. Chris was his name, correct?
Chris Basin?
Yeah, Chris for the U.S. Wind.
Oh, no, Mike Dunmeyer.
Mike Dunmeyer.
Yeah.
I asked him what the plan was for landfall. Where's it coming in? And he did not really give a very solid answer. He said some thoughts about the Indian River power plant area, but that hasn't been decided. Correct?
Yes, I think they mentioned the 3 R's beach, which is just south of there as a possible place to come inland, or the other, but they haven't made a final decision. Either one sounds pretty much the same. It's to be buried under the ground so that it wouldn't be impacting anybody, you know, tripping on it on their way to the beach or anything like that.
I think as far as, the gear, they're definitely want to put it in state park, one of the state park areas, and so therefore, DENREC's now a key player on that one, and I don't know what DENREC's, I haven't heard whether they're going to have any public hearing or discussion on the latest proposal, because they really got burned with the other one by not getting out front on it. So I would imagine once they did say they've completed all the exploration. They did say that. So I imagine there's people who do know where they want to put it, and I would hope that DENREC will probably let the public know before it's the final decision. So I don't know. They had, like, I guess they had two vessels that have been out there in that area last year, and I think Ørsted was exploring and U.S. Wind, and they're done with that.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the update on that. Heather, we kind of tabled the non-idling policy for a while, and to be perfectly honest, I don't remember where we left it.
Oh,
You were
had read in the minutes that you had redrafted it, which is in my absence, which
Oh.
is totally fine.
Well, at one
that's what I
point, I guess I thought that you were working on it, but I was certainly willing to, and so we kind of tabled it till your
Right,
return.
Where I kind of thought we left it was that we were going to speak to the chief of police and get his input as far as how he felt about having that as a law and how he felt about being able to enforce that type of thing before we went too much farther with it. But I don't think I had heard if we were able to talk to him. I'm
I
sure
think
he's
we
very
were,
busy.
we were talking about having signage throughout town, that this seemed to work very well in Newark.
Yeah.
Mary, you were saying that.
Yeah, so we asked the Newark people what kind of enforcement is required on their police, and they said, seemed to them at that point very little, but that they had put posted signs in some of the areas that were problem areas, stating that it was against the law. And they didn't really have too much to say about the police actually citing people. But it could happen. We could need police involvement. And so, and I know that we have to make a decision of what kind of penalties, we really are, we're very in a general concept. And I know, Heather, you put together a lot of information about what other places in the country were doing. And then it was kind of left as, we want to do something, but we have to decide what are the exceptions and how's it going to be enforced. So that's kind of like, we haven't gotten into that kind of detail yet.
Yeah, there was definitely some discussion about, because our town is a little bit unique in that we have all these restaurants and stores that get big deliveries, right? That's not, typical for a lot of places, even Newark, they have much
Yeah.
more residential or whatever. So we may have to nail that down a little bit more
And I think one of
precisely. I know we talked about that.
one of the last discussions we had about it is, do we adopt an ordinance with teeth, or do we just recommend that we take more of a educational and signage approach based on the resolution that was already adopted? We don't have much signage regarding it.
I think,
We don't have any, do we?
We don't.
I don't know of any.
I don't think.
Well, we have, we have the resolution for a long time, but, and I think when we try to get into like our specific problems, I don't think the trucks delivering on the restaurants were really the problem area. The problem area are the work trucks and landscape trucks. And the state does have a law that applies to tractor trailers. And one time I just sort of, and this is just anecdotal, but I was walking around town trying to observe, are these trucks, who's idling? And believe it or not, a lot of the trucks that were pulled up in front of restaurants were not idling. Like they were not idling. But the citizens that we've heard from have pointed out various problem areas in town. And also buses sometimes are a problem. We get a lot of tour buses that come in, and then they just put the bus somewhere and idle while whoever is doing whatever.
Yeah.
And so so probably the restaurant trucks aren't going to be an issue, but I guess it would be good to have our law enforcement get a little feedback. What do they see as problems or issues? Because maybe if we first roll it out, they might have to issue some citations to certain people, because I think there's also like a disconnect between the owners of businesses and employees, from what I understand. And the owners might tell their employees no idling, and the employees are idling. And I've heard that from a lot of people that have businesses, that they would prefer their employees not idle, but they do. So, I think we should have an ordinance. I don't think it should just be voluntary, but if we did have an ordinance, maybe the first thing would be warnings and signs.
Well, I think you have to do signs. I mean, somebody that drives in here for the first time, it's not like they're pulling out the city code and going through it to see what can I do and what can't I do. I think you have to have signs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, why don't we try signs first and see what happens?
Oh, no, I wouldn't want to see signs first and wait to see because that means further waiting. It
That's
seems like
true.
we always
That's
put
true.
everything off. I'd love to see a picture, an article in the Cape Gazette saying, hey, no more idling in the city of Rehoboth Beach. That will do a lot more good, I think, than more signs. We got
yeah.
plenty of
But-
signs in this city already.
And also,
We don't have a single sign that says Rehoboth is a non-idling city. And
We don't.
somebody coming in here for the first time, while it's common sense not to sit here and idle, if they're here in July or August and it's 100 degrees and they're waiting for, their food to be ready or whatever, they or a tour bus that has never been here. They should know that they shouldn't sit there and idle, but we've got to have some signs.
If you want them to have more signs, fine, but let's not delay our action waiting to put up signs and then wait another year to see if the signs worked or not.
I think it would be a better sign if the sign said idling is prohibited, than, please don't idle, we don't like idling. But that's,
But if you
that's
have
what
no,
Newark, they have.
Does the weight of a resolution, can we say idling is prohibited by the weight of the resolution?
Legally,
It doesn't,
I don't think so.
yeah, I don't know.
You could say we have a resolution that idling is not nice, but that's not the same as saying
Yeah, no,
idling
a
is
resolution
prohibited.
is not the same as a law.
and to just put it on the sign, it's not permitted if it has no teeth, then who cares? Yeah,
Yeah,
but, I mean, maybe signs, I think, I like to get things done
That's kind of
too,
how we
Charlie,
ended up.
but.
This same conversation feels very familiar, and I think that's kind of how we ended up with the conversation that said, I don't think we should ask the commissioners to pass a law that the police can't enforce. So if the police are on board and they feel like it's something that they can handle in the peak summer season, that we can ask the commissioners to consider it.
and also I
I
think.
feel like that's where we left off anyway.
One thing I think we should emphasize in terms of whether the police can handle it or not, it's like, yes, they can handle it if it's a priority. No, if it's not a priority, they've got other priorities. And so I think we have to remember that this is something that people want. People want this. They don't want idling, and it's something that is harmful. And so, so with that spin, I think, you have to say, do we want it a priority or not?
No disagreement there, but
Yeah.
I think they might have some constructive input. They might have a suggestion
Yeah.
about how to make it more effective. I just think we should really get their input and then we move forward.
Yeah,
And I
I think it's
think
good
the-
to get their
I
input.
think the majority of the idling goes on early in the morning when, traffic's not there. The people are out of here by 2 o'clock, 12, 1 o'clock, especially from what I see.
Yeah.
So, so you have the trucks, you have actually the township all around. I take a ride around every morning and that I'm here and I see, and there's not a lot of idling, but I think it could be easily enforced or asked. I think it's worth a discussion because I think the majority of it takes place in the morning and maybe that's when the cops aren't busy.
Yeah.
Okay, so who's going to talk to the police?
I'd be pleased to talk to Chief Banks. I like him, he's a nice guy, reasonable fellow. Report back as you suggest, and then we can bring it up again next time.
All
I
right.
mean, if someone wants to get some initial feedback from the chief, we can certainly have the chief here at the next meeting, but if you want to move this along, I suggest get feedback from the chief and then circle back with Heather or Mary, and then come back with a recommendation at the next meeting.
Are we still on the original recommendation that I had sent? That was a while ago. Or is there a new version?
I think we need to
don't-
refresh
Yeah.
whatever the.
I think whatever you last sent
Yeah.
is what the last version was.
Okay, do you want me to resend it just because
Yeah.
it was a long time
Yeah,
ago? I don't know
yeah,
if I-
That'd be good.
I hope I can find it.
Yeah, we really haven't done anything with it since
Okay.
you did something.
Okay, I'll resend it.
I've got Chief Banks on my speed dial, I could call him right now if you'd like to.
He's actually in training this afternoon.
Okay,
I think that's
we'll
good.
talk to him later then.
Good.
All right, so Charlie's going to talk to him, Heather's going to look at the
Yeah, I'll resend that.
And I think we
proposal
could,
and resend.
yeah, I think we could move it along for this summer. I mean,
Yeah, that
why
would be good.
not?
Okay, excellent. So we've got a path forward on that. Charlie, your pollinator garden recommendations. I've got the latest version up on the computer that you sent me. I think we've talked about this quite a few times.
Okay, that's how, I'm learning that's how, that's how it goes. They used to be like,
Am I forgetting something, or didn't we forward something out of the committee at one point on this to the? as a
Charlie
recommend-
thought so too, and I don't think that we ever I don't think that we ever voted on anything. I think,
I thought,
I've-
finish your sentence, I'm sorry, Edward.
I could be totally having a mind fart, but I think, I thought my last recommendation is that we put a list of specific things for the city arborist and the communications person to do, such as resources to put on the website, links, website links to other organizations, talk to the Green Infrastructure Committee about doing another seminar. That's where I thought we left it, but do you want to go over, Charlie, what your recommendation was? I think we all know what the background and the problem is, but maybe just talk about the exact recommendations.
Well, I had prepared a way too wordy, maybe, I don't know, draft with citations to websites, which might be helpful, like you were suggesting for our communications efforts. But at the bottom of page 4, I think it is, I had committee recommendations. Our committee recommends the city adopt a resolution directing city staff to take all appropriate steps to convert grassy, weedy areas on city property to pollinator-friendly gardens, and take further steps to incentivize such gardens on private property, providing advice and plantings where requested. That's the first paragraph of 4, but I think that generally captures the thrust of the recommendations. We'd like to see more pollinator-friendly gardens here in our city so that we might become known as the pollinator capital of the beach. Why not? I mean, Lewis in Bloom has these beautiful tulips. You've seen them. They're marvelous. It's a draw. It's an attraction of tourists to come and see all the wonderful flowers. And likewise, the bees and the butterflies also would like to be coming here as an attraction. They're tourists. So all kidding aside, though, I think that it would be good for our city to have such a reputation, to have that kind of beauty and understanding about, populations of birds and butterflies are all going downhill. We can help to do something about it. So that's the thrust of this effort. You have any particular questions about this write-up? I could continue talking about it, Edward. I just think that would probably be a summary of what's there.
Yeah, I would only add that in your recommendations here, it also suggests or mandates that the city modify any contracts we have with landscapers to substitute grass mowing for pollinator-friendly plant watering and weeding, essentially putting some irrigation systems in for those areas, and that the city should encourage small plantings of gardens in areas between the street and sidewalks. Pollinator plants should be perennials so that we don't have to replant annuals each year, such as black-eyed Susan, purple coneflowers, tall thistles, and milkweed thistles.
Well, you're quoting directly from my recommendations
Yes.
here. Thank you, Edward. That's great. Making my motion.
A list of pollinator, bird-friendly plants and trees should be updated as needed. I know the mayor and commissioners are going to ask, well, what is that list? So we should probably have that or be able to refer to a list, which you may have already referenced earlier.
I also thought that I'm sorry, Edward. I thought we also talked about that we would, advertise and that we would, because we ride by those ones right there on, and I don't know their gardens. I thought that we had asked the arborist, the town, to kind of say, hey, this is a pollinator, this is a garden, some kind of, just
well,
to
that was-
advertise and help push it. If you see it, then maybe others will.
We did talk about that, yeah.
Yeah, so
And
we
you
did.
know what else there's a program that maybe, I don't know if it applies to municipalities or not, but where you can get a sign saying it's a certified wildlife habitat
Right.
from the, I think it's from the National Wildlife
You can get it
Federation.
from National Wildlife, and you can also get it from another place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Liz Lingo was saying that the city actually has done some of this work already, and that she actually was getting some complaints from people saying it looked unkempt.
Right.
You know, so, yeah, I think that would be great to do that,
Have a nice sign and say, working towards,
Difference between people think it's a
You
bunch
know,
of
the
weeds we're not
pollinator
taking care of.
Yeah,
capital of the world, right?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
something, right? Just
like that,
advertise what we're doing.
Yeah, like that little triangle
hotel
out
there,
near where Dick Byrne lives.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one at a time, guys.
There's the little triangle garden that's as you go out of town, what is
Towards
it?
the elementary school.
Yes.
There's one, yeah.
Yes, and there's a little pollinator garden there.
Yep.
And it sometimes looks messy, but it's native plants. And, but maybe a sign there, another sign.
Well, I think that's why I thought we were going to have more recommendations on specific things to do, put signs out so people know that these public areas they look like that for a reason. They're a pollinator garden or for natural habitat, et cetera.
Edward, in response to your listing of these bird populations and pollinators, et cetera, that's in the first page of my proposal, a list of the research centers talking about resources, disappearing pollinators. So there's listings there. There are lots of other listings too. I'm sure the National Wildlife Federation has a listing of at-risk pollinators and the beneficial native flowers that will help them survive, including trees are also extremely beneficial to pollinators as well.
Bushes.
So it's in there. If you'd like to have more in there, I can fatten
No,
up
I
this
just want to make
5-page
sure
proposal.
I just want to make sure that when they ask the question, it's already readily available.
It's right here on page 1 of my proposal.
So, what's the pleasure of the committee?
So I guess the basic thrust is that the city should use native plants in its own landscaping areas that it maintains, and also have like some sort of public education effort. Those are the two prongs of it, Charlie.
Yes, education and action. That should be 2 hallmarks of your entire life.
Part of the education could be there's an excellent state publication on, I don't know if you've seen that, on native plants. It's I don't know whether it's from DNREC, but it's from the state of Delaware.
Yeah, it's from DNREC.
It's a wonderful, and we could get some of that. If we could even take people to the Botanical Garden in Dagsboro, they are native plants and they're pollinators. We could have a trip there.
Well,
One of the things the city already does if somebody's in the, trying to get permitting, you have to have, if you have to have a certain number of, the whole tree program, they have a brochure in the office there with list of trees. And so we could maybe have just, maybe DNREC has something that we can just stick in the, where all those brochures are in the office for people that are in the process of building a new house and having to redo their landscaping.
Where's that office?
It's right when you go, it's on this floor.
Part of building, I think it's within building and licensing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when you walk in there, there's a bunch of brochures near the desk, including a list of trees, or at least there used to be.
I wonder how many people know about this office.
Everybody that wants to take a tree down in Rehoboth knows.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if you have a building permit, you got to worry about the trees and replanting trees, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay.
All right, well,
Yeah.
we've got the analysis and recommendations. We've seen this a few times now. The recommendations are here. So what
I mean,
is-
Ed, I'll be honest with you, I don't know that I've seen it since I'm new to the committee, but that's,
Well, you should have an opportunity to review it. Anybody else, I don't mean to rush this through or ram it down anybody's
right, that
throats or
goes to
anybody.
Ann's point about we have to get things embedded so that we can look at it ahead of time.
Right, to the extent that Nettie and others have recommendations for listings from the websites somewhere or other, DNREC or whatever, I can be glad to incorporate that into this draft proposal. Any recommendations you've got as well, Caroline? I didn't mean to just turn this way. Either direction.
So should we get feedback to Charlie, and then we'll have it up for a possible vote at the next meeting? Is that, yeah? All right, excellent.
You know, just,
I think it's really important to put in have part of the recommendation that on city-owned property that there's signage to identify what type of area it is and why it looks the way it does. I think should be one of the key recommendations there.
just one, and I don't know that we need to address this, but I sent you that article about grasses and how 80% of the bees live under the ground. They don't live in hives and stuff. So this recommendation, and I'm going to try it, is to either plant specifically for types of grasses that will attract bees. But I think if we could also, and I don't know if this falls under Environment Committee, recommend that we stop using pesticides and fertilizers on our grasses in the city. That might be part of our recommendation.
Well, I think that was once in here and was taken out, or was that a separate discussion point we had, Charlie?
Well, I think we had a discussion about pesticides generally. The federal government tries to monopolize the provisions pertaining to pesticides, so that we could certainly make recommendations to minimize the amount of Roundup or other, bad poisons like that. But I don't think that we could ban the use of Roundup. I may be wrong in that, but that's the way I think we left that topic of what do you do about pesticides. But,
We can't
it same
ban
would
it,
be.
but we don't have to, the city doesn't have to use it. We can recommend they not use it, but we can't tell private property owners.
Yeah, I don't know that the city necessarily fertilizes city-owned grasses. Because if you walk around the parks, you will notice a whole lot of weeds. So I don't know that the city fertilizes them.
I think Liz came to one of our meetings and said that they don't.
Right, I
We'd
don't
have-
believe
we'd
they
have to check
do.
that.
Yeah, I don't believe they do.
But I think where we left it was there's potentially an education piece here
Yes.
that, we could move forward in that fashion, but it's going to have to be specific recommendations. We want the city communications director to highlight this in one of the newsletters, et cetera. I mean, those are things that we can recommend. It doesn't always have to be, let's have an ordinance. We can try to promote, educational things by using the chamber, SOLA 3, our city communication resources, the homeowners association, Main Street. I mean, there's all of these resources that we can recommend to get the message out. So
Yeah, and also.
let's not forget about that.
With stormwater management and runoff and lakes management, they have recommended that people try to minimize those chemicals on their property because it ends up in the water. So we have heard it from that end of things.
And then just one quick last comment. Ernie, who lives in my neighborhood, who has that incredible native plant garden, and he also is a master gardener and blah, 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 blah. He said it's okay to use fertilizer and pesticides once a year at certain times, but where the real problem is that everybody uses it over and over and over and over. So I thought that was interesting.
Right, certain bees or bunnies, certain pollinator critters are more sensitive at certain periods of the year because they're hatching their baby little caterpillars, and that's the time when you don't want to spray a lot of pesticides. They're also alternative to mosquitoes, for example. Instead of having mosquito spray all over the place. You can get a bucket of water and get one of those little dunk donuts from any hardware store and plump that in there, and that kills the mosquito larvae without you having to spray. So there's lots of good education. You're absolutely right, Edward, and we should do that as part of this proposal. It doesn't require any action by the mayor or the commissioners, I don't think. It's not a new ordinance or law, but if you see fit that the commissioners would like to make this as a proposal of the mayor and commissioners, as well as just a proposal of the Environment Committee, that'd be great too.
Well, what you have proposed here is that the city of Rehoboth Beach adopt a resolution. So that would take action by the city and the mayor and commissioners. You also suggest that city contracts should be modified. So there is some weight in here that action would need to be taken. So just be clear on what you really want the objective to be and how far it goes.
Right, and I do think it needs to be like updated to reflect that the CDP has been approved by the state, that kind of thing. I think anything we say in here should be accurate.
Right, there's a lot of references to the comprehensive development plan to, let the world know that this is in accordance with the plan. But you're right, we should make reference
to
to
be-
the most recent
yeah, it needs to be
comprehensive
yeah.
development plan that's out there.
So one suggestion, as you modify this document, Charlie, I would break it out, if there's committee recommendations, I would break it out into 2 parts. One that would be actions by the mayor and commissioners, and one that would be actions by the city manager and city staff. So if we're just making friendly suggestions on linking websites, for knowledge base and encouraging putting signs out where we have, pollinator gardens on city property, all of that is administrative and the city manager can dictate that stuff. So it might be helpful just to break it out. What needs to go to the mayor and commissioners? What is a city staff recommendation?
Good.
And I'll report all of it to the mayor and commissioners, but just have it clear who's responsible.
Who's doing what? Got it.
So any comments on this, send to Charlie, and then we'll have a final version of this for the next meeting, hopefully.
Am I authorized to send out to the entire committee a draft like this, or is that a FOIA problem?
No, you can send out the draft, but we can't have a group email exchange back and forth. You can send it out and say, give me your comments individually, don't reply all,
Excellent. We can do that.
okay?
With that said, it would be good to, I don't know the rules, of what we can do and what we can't do. So I'm kind of new too, and this is new, so
That's basically the rule.
Have you
we
been to
just-
any of the
Can't have a
recent training?
you can't have a discussion. Is that it?
On
Okay?
internet.
Yeah, and you can't be in a group, you can't have a quorum of the committee in a group talking about an issue that
Okay.
is before us.
The other thing, though, you should be aware of is any emails, even if it's not considered a public meeting, it still could be considered public information if somebody puts a FOIA request in and said, we want to see all communications of the Environment Committee. So you have to just be aware that somebody potentially could see these emails, even if they're okay as far as not being considered a meeting that has to be published and publicized and notified. You should still have the mindset that this is a sort of in the public domain, any email.
Once a year, we do a FOIA training for all committee members, and everyone should have gotten the invite. I think it was
in
maybe
October. I was gonna say, it was in October, I think.
But I'll make sure that I find the link to that and send it to all of you so you can view the presentation and yeah, it's on the city website, the portal. But I'll email the link directly so you don't have to go looking for it. All right, anything else on pollinator gardens? I think at the last meeting, I forgot to delete this, but we already decided organizational liaisons at the last meeting. So going on to F, which is waste-to-energy solutions for recycling and trash, such as Covanta. Just to bring you all up to speed, I asked Public Works Director Kevin Williams for a meeting a few weeks ago, or I guess it was last week, actually. And I asked Carolyn and Eric to join me with that, because I wanted to get the Public Works Director's thoughts on it before we move this forward. There may be some legal issues with transporting waste out of the state and/or creating our city property being a transfer station, which we're not currently permitted to do. Is that a fair? That's correct. So I have a call into Bob Ziegler, who is, I guess he heads the Delaware Solid Waste Authority. So I'm waiting to get some feedback from him before we decide how to move this forward, just to make sure that any big obstacles that there may be, we figure out how we can overcome them before diving deep into the details.
What's Bob's last name?
Ziegler, Ziegler. So there's an update for that. Going on, any other questions?
I just want to say,
Comments?
and I know there's a lot more to unpack with this whole concept, but my opinion is that recycling should still be a key component of what we do here in Rehoboth, and even if we decide that we want to send our waste to Covanta, I don't think we should just give up on recycling.
I agree, Mary.
If I could, I've been a self-appointed recycling can Dempsey dumpster diver. That is to say, I've been looking inside of our recycling barrels down on the beach and boardwalk, even though it disgusts my wife, who doesn't like, Charlie, don't do that. I stick in there and I see that there is actually pretty high compliance on the cans and bottles, plastic bottles and the things thrown in there. Looks pretty good. Not a lot of contamination. Is that because we've done more education? I don't know.
I think it's the time of year. I think it's the time of year.
It's the true people that live here.
I think in a couple months we'll have a better idea.
Yeah.
Could we ask the elementary school to do their posters? If the commissioners could pay for the lamination, they could certainly do that. And sometimes, and it could be very specific, they're probably fifth graders that would be doing this for every single bin.
So I think that, I've tossed this around with a few people, and I think there's concerns about the message being inconsistent or perhaps not understanding if everyone's doing a different design or different, I guess a different poster for each one.
Could you give us the specifics and the children do different designs with the specifics that would be very catchy and people would pay attention to that? I'm saying the
guys have-
specific things.
My concern is that we're running out of time, because if we need to put some things together and get everybody to agree, you're looking at another month. And then
True,
the
they
kids are out of
can't
school
do
in
it.
another
Yeah, they-
month after that. So
Unless
I
we
don't
do
think
it
it's,
now.
I don't think it's
Yeah.
well, Ed's got another committee meeting in a few minutes, or, today.
It's just-
So I don't think, I guess from my thought is having them, why don't we do the best poster contest and invite the media and get some publicity out of it, but to laminate them and have a different poster on each,
I like that idea. Yeah.
That is how I would prefer to go, not so much having a
okay.
laminated poster that's probably going to blow away.
Where
on
would
each.
these posters be? The best posters, and how many best posters do we want?
I have a question. When I was in Florida, the recycle bins didn't have a big opening. It had a top with a small hole, and you could not put a pizza box in it. Are
Wait,
ours like that?
That's
You
what
can't,
we
yeah,
had
you,
before.
you can't put a pizza box through the hole, but you can lift the lid off, and that's part of the problem. But we talked to Kevin about being able to secure the lids, and the problem with that is it then adds significantly more time to the pickup and, emptying of those cans.
Always been that way? They've always had just a hole instead of a big push opening?
Correct. The push opening is for
Wow.
the push
I didn't know
opening is
that.
for the garbage.
Yeah, I did not
And the
know that.
hole is for
So
the
I'm really
recycle.
surprised that pizza boxes end up in there.
Yeah. But Kevin did indicate, correct me if I'm wrong, that if in the past, if a bag wasn't full, they didn't necessarily take it. They will take it to try to cut down on the contamination.
Okay.
Could we just paint on these open, they're now open recycling bins? Could we just have some type of, like a bumper sticker that's published by the Rehoboth Beach commissioners that says what goes in there
They already are marked. They
They're
already
already
say
marked.
bottles and cans
only?
only.
Okay,
So it's a matter of getting the people to read them.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in Texas, they have these wonderful recycling bins. Don't mess with Texas. I mean, don't mess with Texas. I
Nettie,
mean,
just speak-
sometimes it catches people's attention. Yeah.
No, and maybe there is a better type of sign that catches people's, but that's something we can take a look at. But related to doing something PR related, I'll circle with you specifically offline, and we can brainstorm for stuff. We just don't have the time to
Gotcha.
brainstorm that
And
today.
I don't think the school does either, actually, unless it happened instantly.
So I just want to give you guys an update on the path forward for that. Any other questions? Okay. Someone at the last meeting asked about the water refilling stations that we thought we may be putting out I think by this summer season. Someone thought that we had received grants for
I
that.
thought we had gotten
And
a
I
grant.
thought that those grants did not get approved. Is that correct, Kevin?
It was not approved, then approved. So we got approved for one. So we're in the process of purchasing one. I think Liz purchased already out of budget 2 for somewhere. I'm not quite sure.
Good.
So we should have 3
Good.
soon.
Any idea where they're located?
We're trying to do one at Grove Park by the bike trail.
Okay.
Awesome.
I'm not sure where the other 2 are going to go.
I assume
where
one,
mine's
I
gonna go.
assume one will probably be along the boardwalk somewhere,
Could very well.
I would hope.
I would hope to.
Lifeguard stand. Where are they?
Well, we don't want to do it there because we're getting ready to tear that down and build a new one, right? So we're thinking through where it ought to go, or where they ought to go. I don't think we know yet, other than the one at Grove, which
That's great.
pretty confident we're going to do.
Good.
Good.
That's good.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the assistant city manager did tell me that one would be budgeted in the construction of the new restrooms and beach patrol station as well, right?
Good. Wonderful.
All right, so there's actually more progress there than I even knew. So that's great. All right, final item is the Arbor Day 2024, Earth Day, Arbor Day 2024. Carolyn, can we keep it to 5 minutes or so?
Oh, sure, because we have time on this, but, I mean, one of the things I had thought about is that maybe there are some things we could do in conjunction with Arbor Day and Earth Day next April. Easter is at the end of March, so we wouldn't be, competing with Easter and that kind of thing, but, and I don't know if we'll maybe have next year the hazardous waste again around that time, but perhaps there are some things we can do in conjunction with that. You know, for example, you know, one of the complaints has always been, how do you properly recycle? You know, people put the wrong things in the recycle, but maybe there could be some kind of event at, say, the bandstand where there's somebody doing almost like an education on properly recycling. Maybe there would be somebody from SOLA that could do, you know, have a table and something related to, you know, the lakes. At that point, maybe there's more information on the stormwater, you know, piece to everything, you know. Maybe there'd be a pollinator or rain garden education table, that kind of thing. But I was thinking there may be something that we could do next year related to that, maybe in conjunction with like Rehoboth in Bloom, maybe getting somebody from the plastics group, I'm trying to think, Plastic Free Delaware to come, some of that kind of thing. So I don't know what folks think about that, but that was just, and that would be a way to get some education out on different things too.
Great.
The one thing I think maybe it could be rolled into this, but I was, when we were talking about the pollinator garden thing, if we could have some kind of native plant sale or have garden centers, because I know Inland Bays has one and the Nature Society has one, but there's always seems to be a shortage of native plants, and they're hard to get, and I don't know, maybe we could have something like that too. Yeah, yeah,
Like the inland bays or something. could-
yeah.
We can't hear down.
Sorry.
Well, no, we heard you.
Oh, I
We
just
heard you,
said maybe
Mary.
one of the nurseries would be willing to bring some plants
Perhaps.
down and sell
Yeah,
them.
perhaps, yep.
So what's your plan to move this forward? I don't think that it
Well,
can
do
be-
we, yeah, I was going to say, we probably need the okay of the mayor and commissioners to do something like this, I'm guessing. Or the city manager, true. I mean,
Let me,
I guess if we can get guidance on if we, assuming we want to do this, how would we get permission to do it and that kind of thing?
let me set up a meeting for me, you, and the city manager,
Okay.
and then we'll go from there. But I
Okay.
think this shouldn't be a committee task, but you
Yeah.
Okay,
smaller,
Yep,
you
yep.
small, you
Yep.
form a small group with,
Mhm.
you know, Main Street, Solar 3, Homeowners Association,
Absolutely,
et
yep,
cetera.
okay,
Commission,
okay.
yeah. Mhm.
Excellent. Any other thoughts or suggestions for Carolyn on that?
Great idea.
All right. Excellent. Well, does anyone have any committee member comments in general?
I note that there's something about future agenda items. I wonder if I
Oh,
might
yes, yes.
lay
yes.
down a marker for the future that we might have a discussion of noise ordinances and enforcement. Something I'm interested in. I got a lot of interest, you know.
In what relation to
Yeah.
the Environment Committee?
Yeah.
Well, noise is part of the environment. I mean, the Federal Clean Air Act is really the Federal Clean Air Act and Noise Act.
Okay.
So the federal government, which I used to work for, has noise in the name of the Clean Air Act. So I think it's an environmental issue.
I've had a constituent ask if we would take a look at light pollution again.
Light pollution, put that on the list, yeah.
There was an organization that presented to the Beach and Boardwalk Committee last year sometime called Dark Skies. There was some interest to move it forward, and then it kind of died. So I'm going to get some more information from the folks that were involved in that, and then see. I don't recall why it died.
I don't know either, but their presentation is attached to the Beach and Boardwalks meeting of January 14th, 2021.
So I just have that listed as a potential upcoming item as well.
We have discussed in the past asking the city to adopt some of the dark skies recommendations when they buy lighting in the future, or if they were going to change the boardwalk lighting or add any additional lighting to the city. I don't know if that ever
It
where it
didn't.
needed to go.
It sort of was part of a discussion of replacing the light poles when and having the wireless companies pay for it. And it just didn't go anywhere. There wasn't an appetite. So, any other upcoming?
Well, I guess
items?
one thing, would we want to look into, I was reading the article that was in the Cape Gazette not too long ago about I think he was a junior at Cape that did a project. He was part of the Cape High Green Club, and he did a project on anode and cathode, recycling of batteries, and there's a company that will take those batteries. Would we want to, look into, not necessarily, you can't have a roadside pickup of batteries, but maybe suggesting that we have like a place that we can take batteries within the city, that kind of thing. I also, in doing a little, Googling, found that you can get bins and they will do recycling of cigarette material. So in places where you allow smoking, like along the board, there are certain places on the beach they can smoke. Like I think the city directs people out the back, like around the corner by the door. Do we look into potentially getting some of these containers for recycling of, say, cigarette waste? I was shocked when I saw it too. But so there's a lot of different things like that. That, or making people aware of where you can, do other types of recycling. Do we want to do anything like that?
Battery recycling, isn't that part of Household Hazardous Waste Day now being responsored?
It is,
at
but
the
if you had
Rehoboth
a-
Elementary
yeah.
School, it's on the marquee
Saturday.
right out front.
It's
Yeah.
Saturday.
Yeah, but
8 to
but
2.
I don't know that I want to hold on to my batteries for a year.
Okay,
You know,
well,
that
it's
kind of
it's
thing.
something for further
But we
discussion.
can look into that in the future.
I wondered if you could tell me what's going on with the landscape leaf blower and gas-powered.
Like I said earlier, the mayor recognizes that there's a few pending recommendations out there from us, as well as a couple other committees. So he's hoping that we might get to them in June.
Okay.
And he does apologize. Like I said earlier, our meetings have been pretty jam-packed and lengthy.
I thought when Charlie said something about noise, the season is upon us of
Yes.
noise.
It is,
And,
it is.
We have a noise ordinance here in the city, hooray.
do have one.
It seems just to me that the best thing to do would be have an enforcement mechanism, namely one of those things, sort of like motion sensing light switches that could sense when the noise is above the acceptable level and then just take a picture of their license plate.
Well, that's a day for another day. Any final comments?
Stan's here.
Mayor, would you like to join us up here?
Hi, thank you. I'm Stan Mills, Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity. Believe it or not, I'm down there watching and I'm listening, so be aware of that. I just want to let you know, for years I've tried to get a battery recycling and oil recycling in our recycling yard. And I've failed, admittedly, but the reasoning is oil is considered a hazardous waste. And I ran upstairs, so forgive me. Oil's a hazardous waste, and DSWA has no intention of doing it here. They only do it at transfer stations.
Okay.
And I found the same thing out for residential household batteries. Car batteries, household hazardous waste days, they will take them. But I called up and they will not take residential household battery because again, it's a different type of hazardous waste. They only do it on-site transfer station collection. Very disappointing because I've got a lot of batteries I want to get rid of.
Okay.
But I've tried to put a household battery collection place down here at our place, and because they consider household residential batteries hazardous, It actually is under the purview of the Department of Natural Resources. And so we're not going to have any luck getting them there. So
Okay,
I'll
thank
fail in
you.
those two things.
All right, thank you for that information, Mayor. With that, two final announcements I want to make. Arbor Day is April 21st. Tomorrow. And at 10 a.m. at Deer Park on 3rd Street between Kent and Cookman, there will be a celebration. The governor and some other elected officials will be there. If you can come, you're more than welcome to. It would be great. And then, as someone said, from 8 to 2 on April 22nd, Saturday, we do have, we are collecting household hazardous waste in the parking lot of the elementary school. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to go, team. Thank you, Catherine, for taking notes.
Oh.